Know for certain that your offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be servants there. And they will be afflicted for 400 years. You shall not prosper in your ways. You shall be only oppressed and plundered continually, and no one shall save you. You will get a wife, and another man shall lie with her. You shall build a house, and you will not dwell therein. You will plant a vineyard, and shall not gather the grapes. Your sons and your daughters shall be given unto another people. The Lord shall bring you unto a nation which neither you or your fathers have known, and you shall serve other gods, wood and stone. And you shall become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all the nations. You will have sons and daughters, but you will not keep them, because they will go into captivity. You will serve your enemies in hunger, in thirst, in nakedness, and lacking everything. A yoke of iron will be placed upon your neck. A nation shall come against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies. A fierce-looking nation. They won't have respect for the old or pity for the young. They will devour your young and the crops of your land until you are destroyed. They shall besiege you in all your gates until your high and fortified walls, in which you trust, come down throughout all your land. Even the most gentle and sensitive man among you will have no compassion on his own brother. Whereas you are as the stars of heaven in multitude, you shall be left few in number. You shall be scattered among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there shall you serve other gods, which neither you or your fathers have known, gods made of wood and stone. Among those nations you will find no rest, and the Lord will take you back to Egypt in ships. Among those nations you will find no rest, and the Lord will take you back to Egypt in ships, by the way which I said to you, you shall never see again. And there you should be offered for sale to your enemies as male and female, but no one will buy you. Though there has been slavery throughout history, the form of slavery freedmen experienced was very different. Chattel slavery. Never in history were people put into perpetual slavery. Never was a person considered cursed or subhuman because of their skin tone. Never before was a human treated as property that could be inherited from one generation to the next. Never in history were a people told to forget their culture, their religion, their family name, their custom, their language. This is the story of those people, the ones that persevered and overcame. This is the story of the American FreedMen. 1500. Enslaved Africans were present in the region that became the United States as early as 1526, nearly a century before the 1619 arrival in Jamestown. Africans were integral to early European exploration and colonization efforts. 1512. The Maroons. The Maroons were enslaved people who escaped captivity in the Americas starting as early as 1512 to establish free, independent communities, often in dense, mountainous, or forest-like regions. They created self-sufficient societies such as those in the Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Jamaica, often resisting colonial powers through guerrilla warfare. They often raided plantations for supplies, formed alliances with indigenous populations, and established hidden, fortified towns. Maroons were known for their skill in using their deep knowledge of the local environment to fight against colonial troops. (1513). Juan Guerrero was the first recorded African to set foot on American soil. He participated in Ponce de Leon's expedition in Florida in search of the Fountain of Youth. 1526. Enslaved Africans carried out the first recorded slave rebellion in what is now the United States on the South Carolina-Georgia coast, following the death of Spanish leader Lucas Vasquez de Ayllón. The enslaved people revolted, burned a Spanish home, and escaped to live with the local Native Americans, making a significant early act of resistance. (1539). Estevanico, a Moor, was one of the first documented Africans to explore the Southwest. He guided a Spanish expedition through present-day Arizona and New Mexico. His ability to communicate with indigenous groups made him indispensable, acting as a scout and mediator. 1595. The earliest recorded birth of an African-American child in the present-day United States occurred in St. Augustine, Florida. 1598. The first recorded black marriage in what is now the United States occurred in 1598 in St. Augustine, Florida. 1600. In the 1600s, black people in America transitioned from limited indentured servitude to codified racialized slavery. 1619, around 20 Africans arrived in Virginia aboard a Dutch ship to meet labor demands for tobacco. Early African arrivals were often treated as indentured servants who could potentially gain freedom, but by the end of the century, this became rare. Colonies passed laws that solidified race-based slavery, reserving the status for Africans only. 1676. Bacon's Rebellion. Bacon's Rebellion was a violent uprising in colonial Virginia led by Nathaniel Bacon against Governor William Berkeley, fueled by high taxes, falling tobacco prices, and frontier conflict with Native Americans, culminating in the burning of Jamestown. It united poor whites and black laborers against the ruling elite, prompting colonial leaders to harden racial laws and accelerate the transition to chattel slavery to prevent future cross-racial alliances. $1700. Throughout the 18th century, the experience of black people in America was defined by intense, systematic chattel slavery, yet they maintained cultural identity and pushed for freedom amidst increasing restrictions. Despite harsh conditions, enslaved people resisted through rebellion, running away, and forming communities. 1702. In 1702, the slave codes passed. Some things stipulated in the slave codes were it was illegal for 3 or more to gather in groups. Oppressors were permitted to punish slaves as they saw fit. Elias Noe created a school for indigenous freedmen and enslaved blacks. The Virginia slave codes stated that any non-Christian could be enslaved, African or indigenous. This code also prohibits interracial marriage. In 1711, it was a public slave market and was open near Wall Street. In 1712, fed-up enslaved Africans started to revolt. Armed Negroes attacked their oppressors. Countless Negroes' lives were lost. In 1712, former enslaved people couldn't own land. 1713, Spain awards Britain the rights to traffic African people to Spanish colonies for enslavement. In 1717, the French brought 2,000 Africans to Louisiana to begin a slave trade. 1721, voting laws. Only Christian white men who owned property could vote. 1724, the curfew law. The curfew law was established for non-white people. Any non-white outside after 9 p.m. could be arrested or worse. The Black Codes. Code Noir prohibited slaves from gathering or selling anything without permission, marrying without permission. Enslaved people could not own property at all. Oppressors are required to indoctrinate through religion any slave they own. The Black Code detailed harsh punishments for various offenses, including running away, theft, and striking of an enslaver. Punishments included whippings, branding, and even execution.
It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
1735, the Negro Act. The Negro Act tells Negroes what type of clothes they can wear. They must wear low-quality fabrics or hand-me-downs. If anything else is worn, the black person can have their clothes taken by force.
Side note.
While the modern blue jean was patented later, the heavy-duty indigo-dyed coarse materials used in the 1700s, often referred to as Negro cloth, laid the groundwork for the modern blue jean.
Still everything.
1738, the first black American settlement was established in St. Augustine, Florida. Fort Mose, which is recognized as the first legally sanctioned free black town in what is now the United States, is established. More than 100 African refugees, mostly escapees from British slavery in the Carolinas, reached Spanish Florida and were granted freedom by the Spanish crown in exchange for allegiance and conversion to the Catholic religion. 1739, a slave uprising occurred in South Carolina called the Stono Rebellion. The rebellion began with 20 enslaved Africans gathered near the Stono River, raided a store for weapons, and marched south, killing white colonists and recruiting more slaves along the way. The rebellion was ultimately suppressed by colonial militia, resulting in significant casualties on both sides. 1741, blacks continued to fight for freedom. Reading and writing was outlawed. Blacks couldn't meet in groups or earn money. Oppressors could kill their slaves if they saw fit. Anthony Benezet opened schools for black children. 1752, Benjamin Banneker makes one of the colony's first clocks out of wood. 1758, first black church, named Bluestone in Virginia. 1760, Brighton Hammond publishes the first book by an enslaved man. Jupiter Hammond published the first collection of poetry. 1762, Negroes weren't allowed to vote. 1770, Crispus Attucks was the first killed defending America in the Revolutionary War against the Britons. His murder started the Boston Massacre. 1773, Phyllis Wheatley published her book of poems. Enslaved people started to petition courts for freedom, but got denied. 1775, blacks could now enlist in the military under George Washington. Peter Salem killed a British major on Bunker Hill. First abolitionist meeting was held.
All who feel an interest in the preservation of their liberties are respectfully invited to attend.
1776, a pivotal year in American history, marked by the adoption of the Declaration of Independence by the Continental Congress, declaring the 13 American colonies as independent from Great Britain. 100,000 enslaved people liberated themselves during the Revolutionary War. 1777, Vermont banned slavery. 78, the Cuffee brothers refused to be taxed on grounds that blacks couldn't vote and were not given opportunities to earn sufficient income. They were jailed. 1780, Massachusetts abolishes slavery. Free African Union Society was formed in Rhode Island. Pennsylvania adopts Abolition Act. All blacks born after November 1st, 1780 will be free on their 28th birthday. All of the Negroes will remain enslaved. 84, the first Black Masonic Lodge launched. 1785, New York frees all Negroes that fought in the Revolutionary War. 1786, the Tignon Laws of 1786, enacted in Spanish Louisiana, were sumptuary laws forcing free and enslaved black women to cover their hair with knotted cloths to visually mark them as lower class and curb their perceived attractiveness to white men, thus reducing social competition with white women. Instead of being suppressed, black women creatively reinterpreted the law by wrapping knotted cloths in elaborate, colorful, and jeweled styles, transforming symbols of oppression into distinct expressions of beauty, fashion, and cultural pride, a tradition of head wrapping that continues today. 87, U.S. Constitution was drafted, but still allows slave trading for the next 20 years. The U.S. government. Slaves were counted as 3/5 of a person. 90, Brown Fellowship Society allowed Black American freedmen burial rights, mostly for light-skinned blacks. 91, Benjamin Banneker designs District of Columbia. 92, Benjamin Banneker published the Almanac. 93, the Fugitive Slave Act was passed. The act made it a criminal offense to assist slaves seeking freedom. Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. 94, a gradual emancipation law was adopted by New York. 98, Joshua Johnson was the first Black visual artist. These are some of the things that were going on in the 1700s concerning the Black freedmen. And in spite of all the horrific events that they had to endure, they somehow continued to rise.